Bridgeport is in the house, and it is good to see you, Ernie. How have you been?
Man, I'm overworked, underpaid, but I just left a big, powerful meeting I had to go to, rushing to get back here. I had to put my car in the shop, so I've been running.
If you live in Bridgeport, you are very familiar with that voice. I'm James Walker, and he is Councilman Ernie Newton, and he's here to talk to us today about his new role as director of Bridgeport's Reentry Welcoming Center. Let's hear what he has to say. Well, it's
Yeah,
good to have you back on the show. It's been a couple of years since you were last here. We talked about the curfew is the last thing I
yep,
talked to you
yep,
about.
I remember
And
that.
then I read that you were director of
Right,
this reentry program. You're the perfect
yeah.
person to run it, man. So tell us what's going on with that.
Well, as you know, we have been fortunate to open up a welcoming center for men and women who are released from prison and put on the streets. They don't have probation, they just drop them off. They bring them to the welcoming center where we provide them with the tools necessary to make them feel welcome. We give them a bag with shirts, t-shirts, all deodorants, all kinds. We got food for them. We also partnered with recovery network programs because a lot of our brothers and sisters coming out they need help, medical help. And so we provide those kind of things. And I can tell you, we have like I said, we have a contract with DOC. We have one in New Haven, Hartford, and I think Waterbury is getting ready to start one where we bring men and women back into society to make them feel welcome. And the good thing about career resources is that we provide the job training. We've got a lot of partners. We have a job center that will find employment. And as you know, Bridgeport is a welcoming center, and they do hire ex-felons now after I put the language in 2017.
Well, I've had ex-offenders on the program. In fact, I think I've interviewed three of them, and I asked them about the challenges that they faced. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them actually said two of them had very bad experiences. One had a very relatively good experience. He got a job. They did what he said they were supposed to do. But then we have those who said exactly what you said. I'm just dropped off on a corner. I have no money. I have nothing. He said, but all I know is that I have some probationary money that is due. And this is the first time I understood that some of these men have to pay back, or
Right.
I have, so I was really surprised about that. So how do we make sure that that is not going to be a problem now? How can we make sure that this
Right
program
now,
is not going
right
to just be come and go?
right now, we are working on with Fred Hodge, who's on the city council with me, who has spearhead the issue that you're talking about, to where once you've paid your debt to society, the state shouldn't be looking for you to pay them back for housing you. So that we made some movements in that area, but we've got some more work to do. But the legislature did take that bill up and passed it.
Okay.
So that's a start in the right direction. They didn't cover all crimes, but at least they put the legislation in. So now we got to just fine tune it some more to where they wipe that stuff out.
Now, let me ask you, what is happening with these men when they're behind bars? Because it seems to me they should be a little bit more prepared once they drop them off. So, I do know that I had some literature that was totally outdated that they were handing some of these young men as they were leaving prison. And I said, none of this seems to be true. In other words, this literature said, look, go here, they'll give you an apartment. Go here, they'll give you money. Go here, they'll give you food stamps. And what they were telling me is none of this was true.
So right now, that's what we do. The first step or the welcoming center. Once you come to us, we've already had contact with you 6 months in advance before you come out of prison. So we already know if they do a application. The probation people sends it to us 6 months before you come out.
Okay.
So we already know what it is you need. We also send a booklet to the prisons, making everyone aware of what's available when you come out. So that's education, that's job training, all the tools you need to function. While those 6 months before you come out, you're able to begin to diagnose what direction you want to go in.
Now, let me ask you a question. For a lot of these guys coming out, are they really that uneducated, or are most of them high school graduates?
Well,
I've,
it's a variety. I had a gentleman that just came out after serving 22 years. Man. So
yeah,
you already know
yes, that's a problem.
I've got to reprogram him
Sure.
because he's been down 22 years. And so when he comes out, he won't even know Bridgeport because it didn't look the way it looked 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we've enrolled him into a great program to slowly bring him up to speed so that
And
he'll be able to function.
and do you find that there is a genuine readiness that for these guys to actually hit the ground running? Do you find that that's what most of them want to do, put that past behind them? I do know that there's going to be a certain percentage of guys that come out and they're just not interested in going the straight and narrow, so to speak. But what is your general feeling about the guys who are coming out? Do they want to go straight and narrow?
Everybody that comes out has the intention of trying to hit the ground running. But my concern is this. You can tell me you need a job. My question to you, tell me how you keep that job. Because it's more than just giving you a job.
That's correct.
I want to make sure, number one, you know how to keep your job. Because I tell them when they come to me, it's not about you anymore. It's about the people that come after you. So you got to do a good job so that employers would say, you know what, Johnny Jones was the best work I ever had. Give me 5 more people. So it's reprogramming them first to make sure they're ready.
I would think that I'm not so sure if this is 100% the case right now, but I think there was probably a period of time when employers were very reluctant to
That's right.
hire prisoners because of trust issues. Maybe they're afraid of a little violence that might follow. So, as you say, it's very important that these guys who do come out and get jobs put on a good showing because it is about the men and women who are going to follow behind them. They're trailblazers in a sense.
And
So,
so what my philosophy and what I tell people when they come to us is that all you have to do is listen to us. We'll help you get there, but I'm not going to want it more than you want it. So there's
absolutely.
things you got to do. I can get you to the door, but I can't get you through the door. But I will train you and help you get through that door. And I can tell you, so far since we just started, probably seen about 50 people, 50 already.
Okay.
A great majority of them either enrolled in programs or working. But it's not just about working. You got to understand, how do I save my money? How do I, you know,
How
banking?
do I pay my
So
bills?
we do all of those things to get them prepared for the real world.
Now,
And it's been very successful.
do you find there's a difference in the approach to men and women? Is there a different approach to rehabilitating women as there is to men?
What I found out is that women have some of the same needs. They got children, they're trying to get back. They got same kind of preparation goes in for the women as it does for men. But women, depending on her situation, it could be a little bit different. But the concept is still the same.
It's still the same.
Because you've got to prepare people. If I've been down 22 years, trust me, I need some help.
You need some help, yeah. And you need a lot of help.
And if I've been down 5 years, I need help. So our job, and you got to have patience. A lot of guys come out of prison, they don't have a lot of patience. They got a lot of issues, mama drama, baby drama, but we get them to understand that if we put you together, your world will fall in place. But you got to get together. And that's what we work on.
Yeah, and patience is very important. A lot of these men must understand, there was a buildup to you getting 22 years in jail. It just doesn't, it doesn't change overnight. That's the same whether you've been in jail or not. There are steps you have to, it's true. You have to work your way to a good salary or to a better life. You just can't sit back and just wait for someone to give it to you. Now, what about funding? Or do you think funding, probably not now, but a year or two down the road, do you think funding is going to be a problem? Because that tends to be what happens to a lot of these programs. They're announced, there's some immediate funding, and then a year or two later, the funding dries up.
Well, no, because this was done with the CARES Act money.
Okay.
And that's in place for 3 years. And so the good thing is that if you look at what's happening, a lot of things have changed for people coming out of incarceration.
Right.
They've got more opportunities today than they had 10 years ago. They can go to college. They can get free, classes in manufacturing. So the concept has really evolved. Even here in Connecticut, what's been happening and the legislation that has been passed, the clean slate bill, that was
the juvenile bill.
Right, that was unheard of 20 years ago, that for minor crimes, we'll wipe your slate clean after a certain period of time. That was unheard of. But it's happening now here in Connecticut.
Yeah. Well, how many people now? Are you just Bridgeport? Are you just overseeing Bridgeport, or you're just overseeing Bridgeport? And how many people do you anticipate this welcoming center is going to help?
We project, based on what the DOC has told us, about 400 people will be released within the next 6 to 8 months to a year. So we've targeted 400.
Okay.
But that also will include our halfway houses, because once they get out of halfway, and our halfway houses have, you got to work in order to stay in a halfway house.
Right.
So a lot of our guys are working while they're in the halfway house. So we project anywhere from 400 to 1,000 people could pass through.
Now, that's a lot of people, and and quite frankly, that number of people can make a significant impact in a community if they do indeed right themselves. So, what are some of the problems that you see, not from the inmate point of view, but from your point of view? What are some of the problems you would like to see corrected for reentry?
Well, the number one problem that we've been working on with Myra, that's the mayor's initiative on returning citizens, is a lot of guys that get out don't have the proper ID. So Myra has worked out with the Department of Motor Vehicle that they will open on a certain period of time and afford those individuals to get a permanent ID. Because you can't do nothing without ID.
Without ID. And
So,
it seems so strange that these guys don't have ID.
well, the problem is that they have ID when they go into prison. And the problem is when they come out of prison, they don't have it. So we've been working, trying to figure out why the DOC, when I went to prison, they took my picture. So I had a picture as a person that was incarcerated with my inmate number. You mean to tell me that when I get ready to leave, you couldn't take a picture of me as a permanent ID? So we've been trying to get DOC and the Department of Motor Vehicle to communicate. That's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. It just doesn't. It not only is it a no-brainer, it's cost effective.
That's right.
It's cost effective.
That's right.
And
so I mean, they've come a long ways, though. We've been able to get a lot of people their IDs. So that's improved a great deal from 10 years ago.
now, let me ask you: when you talk to these young men, because it's not just now that you're a director there, but you've been talking to the young men about this, and you just disappeared. Okay, you've been talking to young men about this for a while, and you
Right.
yourself, as you say, have been in prison, and you have been in the spotlight. It's not like one of these guys who nobody knows anything about.
Right.
You've been in the spotlight, front page, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And yet you have come out, you have maintained a visible presence. People have continued to support you. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it's a mindset thing. My position has always been, listen, I walked into prison with my head up, and when I walk out, I'm walking out with my head up. And I'm going to finish what God has in store for me to finish. So when I got out, I was blessed because I had a wife, kids, a place to live. But I didn't go to all the people I knew and say, look, I need a job. Can you help me? I wanted to feel what they feel when they got out. And so it took a while because I wanted to be able to let people see anything worth having is worth working for. But you got to stay on your grind. You got to do that. And so I've been blessed to work for Career Resources. And I started out as a navigator. And I did job fairs and I did all these things. And now I'm the director of their Welcoming Center, which takes it to another level. And I can tell you it's working.
And you're also on the city council. Are you still?
I'm on this is my third term. I served there from 81 to 85 as the first black president. And as you know, I went to the State House and Senate. But I wanted to show people that you don't have to let your situation nor your location obscure your destination.
That's a good, that's, I like that. You're absolutely right. And you don't have to let your past rule your future. You can turn it around. Right. And that's why I think you're so good for this. You're such a example of what you can do and what you can overcome. Are any plans in the future to go back to the Capitol?
They asked me to run this last time, but as you know, I'm on the city council, and one of my council partners has been ill. So that's the only reason I didn't run for a state office, because I've got a lot of work that I'm doing. The shopping center, first class on Stratford Avenue, two-way traffic we're working on. So I wanted to finish that first, and then we'll look at what the future holds.
Do you think Bridgeport is on the up and up? It always seems that Bridgeport, the biggest city, tends to get shortchanged on everything from new businesses to projects just falling apart. I live in New Haven, but I can tell you that I live in New Haven, and I shouldn't maybe not say this, but the only reason why I'm not living in Bridgeport is because I couldn't find an affordable place in
Right,
Bridgeport. And when people say, oh, Bridgeport, blah, blah, I say, oh, I love living in Bridgeport. I lived in Black Rock, but I love living
right.
in Bridgeport. And I don't understand why that city just continues to disappoint, quite frankly, its residents. And where do you think Bridgeport is heading right now?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a bright future, man. I mean, we're having problems all over the country. They're having problems in New Haven. They're having problems in Hartford. Yeah. Bridgeport has a great opportunity. And like I said, you're absolutely right to a degree on it seems like Bridgeport always gets the short end of the stick. But there are a lot of great things happening in Bridgeport that people just aren't aware of.
I'm aware of, okay.
And we're building new housing, we're fixing up neighborhoods, and Bridgeport is beginning to look at ways to attract more people to not just rent, but own stuff in our city.
And do you think that your recovery center is going to be a big part of this renaissance in the Black community?
There's no doubt about it. One of the first things I did when I got back on the city council is I passed an ordinance to open up and allow returning citizens to be able to work for our city. And we started out in the Parks Department. And so what we did was they would hire what's called seasonals.
Mm-hmm.
And based on their work ethics and how good they were doing, it's safe to say we've hired at least 5 or 6 ex-felons who work for the city of Bridgeport permanently. So if we all did that, we wouldn't have any problems. I know you're familiar with the 1 million job movement by Scott X.
Mm-hmm.
So the movement is there. And now with these welcoming centers in New Haven, in Hartford, in Bridgeport, it's going to give men and women a greater opportunity to be productive members of society.
I have one more question. A lot of this I have found when I talk to a lot of these young men who have had problems and they're trying to overcome their past, a lot of it I find is that they don't have the confidence that they can overcome their past. And they seem to feel that, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to shed that, those bad years. How do you build up their confidence and say to them, hey, you made a mistake, let's put it behind us and let's move forward? How do you give them that confidence to do that?
I think the way you do it is by being around people who are doing it,
Make sense?
who are ex-felons. And so what we've done here is that we have a group of men who have been successful in, I'll say, Bridgeport. And so when new guys come out and they see former drug dealers or former gangbangers or whatever you want to call them, owning their own homes, going to work every day, those are the powerful examples that if Ernie can do it, shit, I can do it.
I can do it.
Okay. And that's how we begin to break the myth that, hey, I'm a felon, ain't nothing here for me. You got to show them by example. You can't talk about it, you got to be about it.
Makes sense to me. Ernie, is there anything else about the Recovery Center that you want people to know?
Well, I will give you, if you're from Bridgeport, we're located at 480 Bond Street. And we're here. Our phone numbers are 203-416-8901. It's for men and women who are dropped off on the streets or who are brought to us that we help. Not to say we won't help anybody who's been out 2 years, 3 years, or whatever and still having problems. But that's what this program is geared to catch those men and women that don't go to halfway houses, that are just put on the streets.
Well, let's hope that this is a success, because it is certainly needed. And it's not just needed because, you know, it will help right somebody's life. It is needed because it will impact the community as a whole and help uplift the community. And we need that from young Black men. We need them to feel that they are responsible for their communities, and what they do is important in upholding that community and making sure that the people in it are safe and all the other things that make up a good community.
Well, I can tell you this in closing, that about 30, maybe 30, 40 men who have been formerly incarcerated, but now are productive members from Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, have men that walk through PT as positive examples to let young people know you seeing positive Black and Hispanic men who've been in the system. But today, man, we own our own homes. We need to talk to you to stop shooting one another. And so when things like that happen, and we're going through all the sides of towns to let men see, young boys see positive Black role models other than what they see in the streets now. So that's what we're doing to bring our community together.
And let's hope that it continues to work. Much success to you, Ernie. I love talking to you. I'm so glad that you took the time to talk to us. Is there, now I know that you're involved in other things. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to come back in maybe a few weeks and talk about some other things?
We'll come back in a few weeks. I just wanted to make everybody aware of the Welcoming Center, man. We're doing a great job here. And people, one thing I will say, out of all the men that have come through these doors so far, what makes me feel so good, and my staff, they leave here saying, you know what? No, I've never felt so important that you all have made us feel like. And that's the reward I get, because it's a welcoming center, and trust me, we make you feel welcome.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real People. If you would like to be on the show, if you have an idea for the show, give us a call at 203-605-1859 or drop us an email at realtalkrealpeoplect@gmail.com. You folks have a good week, and we'll talk again next week.